This is the Baseball Tonight podcast for Tuesday, March 10th, 2026, and today will be better than yesterday. I'm Buster Olney, working from my hotel room down in the Tampa area. Taylor Schwenk is back in ESPN. And Taylor, we were going to do a podcast today, but there's just too much going on. Like, I texted you yesterday, and I was like, hey, we got to talk about the Skubal stuff. And then later I texted you, hey, we got to talk about this Arozarena stuff. And Scott Boras, who represents Skubal, is going to join us on the podcast today.
Buster, I love when I get a text from you, Buster. It's like, oh, should we have a little guy named Scott Boras on the show tomorrow? Is that big enough guest to bust up our schedule? I said, absolutely. And here we are. Tons to talk about. I can't wait. And then we got Hembo in the mix too. This is awesome.
That's right. And Hembo is going to lead off for us today. Hembo, of course, the content producer on the show Get Up. Hembo, how you doing?
Buster, I'm doing outstanding. I mean, right now it's March the 10th as we sit here and record, and I feel like we're smack dab in the middle of baseball season. Rather, I feel like we're in the smack dab in the middle of October. These World Baseball Classic games have provided as much energy on my television as anything I've seen except for postseason baseball. It has been outstanding, and it seems like the players and the fans can agree on this for sure.
Yeah. A lot of controversy, some criticism going around, players cussing each other out. Like we're into it right now. All right, let's talk about Tarik Skubal's decision to back out of the World Baseball Classic. And in fact, in some respects, Hembo, he never was in, right? The plan was, when he left the Tigers to go to the WBC, was he was going to pitch in one game, given the fact that this year he's headed to free agency. He's got like $400 million on the line. When he even mentioned the possibility, when he came out of the first game that he pitched for Team USA, and he mentioned that, I don't know, maybe I will pitch again. That got people's attention. And I'm kind of bummed now that he's made the decision. And he told that to reporters yesterday. I'm kind of bummed he's taking some flack. What do you think?
I'm extremely bummed that he's taking some flack because there's no obvious reason for him to do it. One thing I've never been in the business of doing, Buster, is telling people what they should do, telling people how they should feel. It's very clear to me that he's really enjoyed that experience, that Mark DeRosa and company have built an environment and infrastructure where players love to be. They're very much enjoying their experience. And of course, the environments in which he's pitching are electric, as I just pointed out. I mean, we're talking about postseason baseball in March, and any competitor, especially one as legendary as Tarik Skubal, wants to be involved in it. But if you're sitting here and saying he's a bad teammate or he's unpatriotic or any such nonsense like that, or he's selfish, go take a hike. This is a person, as you said, with a $400 million payday on the line, and he can truthfully make any decision that he so chooses. He could have very easily shut this thing down a year ago and said, no, I'm not taking this chance. Instead, he was a good soldier, and now I think in some sense he's paying some kind of public price for the fact that he showed up and is conflicted about this. I don't think fans can have it both ways, and I'm not here for any slander being thrown at Tarik Skubal, who in my judgment is doing exactly the right thing for exactly the right reasons.
Yeah, and on Monday he spoke to the reporters. Taylor, do we have that?
I had a lot of conversations with the club, my agent, teammates here, teammates that are still in Lakeland, and the resounding kind of message was to kind of be done, but still be around the team as much as I can.
Yeah, so Tarik Skubal, as usual, was very upfront, answered questions about it. And I got to say this, after talking to the number of people in baseball, I think when we see what happened here, Hembo, I think that Mark DeRosa, who manages Team USA, is responsible for putting this team together. He was the one who Tarik said yes to. He could have given him more cover. Like, I think a better way for Mark DeRosa to handle the situation would have been to, after Tarik pitched his one game, if he would have just said, hey, Tarik, man, thank you so much. We loved having you here. The plan was that you were going to make one appearance. You're going back to Detroit. Thank you for doing this. And then get in front of reporters and say, it was amazing having Tarik here. I know he wants to support the event. This is a big year for him. It will be wishing him well as he rejoins the Tigers. I think he should have been that forceful instead of sitting back. And now I think that's part of the reason why Tarik is taking some flack here.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's a well-made point, Buster. I mean, I think Mark DeRosa has done a really good job at this club and done a very nice job of aggregating this group and obviously assimilating them. But he's a very inexperienced manager. I mean, that's not what he does every day. He does TV every day, and he's really good at that. But part of me wonders, Buster, if upon further reflection after the tournament, when he reflects upon what happened and the conversations that he's had, if maybe he could have said, I should have taken that player's helmet away for him. I mean, that's
Yes.
an expression that we use all the time in the NFL for obvious reasons. We know that these guys are world-class competitors in part because they have this kind of world-class drive, and Tarik Skubal is no exception. So if that ball was taken out of his hand for him, I think it would have made things a lot easier. And then from the perspective of communicating with the public, things would have been a lot less clumsy.
Right, and you could have said that, right? You could have just said, "Nope, he's done. He's going back to the Tigers." And then if Skubal showed up on his own volition down the road and said, "Hey, I'm making myself available to pitch no matter what my agent says, no matter what I said to the Tigers in the past," that changes the circumstance. But as it stands, because it was sort of left up in the air and everyone was waiting for 24 hours about what Skubal was going to do, now as he walks away, he's taking some flack, which I think was unnecessary. All right. The interesting situation happened in the game between Mexico and the United States. Cal Raleigh declined to shake the hand of his teammate, Randy Arozarena, when Randy walked up to the plate. Now, after the game, Randy was asked by reporters about Cal not wanting to shake his hand. Here's what he had to say.
¿Cómo quiere que le responda acá, Randy? ¿Cómo quiere que le responda?
No, es lo que tú nos quieres compartir.
Acá, Riley, ¿cómo se lo digo? Yo se lo quiero decir en 4 idiomas, se lo quiero decir yo. En 4 idiomas. Primero se lo voy a decir en español, mira. Primero, lo único que tiene que hacerle es darle gracias a Dios que tiene buenos papás, ¿no? Que sus papás están muy bien educados. Gracias a Dios, hace 2 días que los pude ver en el hotel y me fueron a saludar, me dieron un abrazo y estaban muy orgullosos de mí de poder verme otra vez. Lo otro se lo quiero decir a los cubanos, se lo voy a decir. Es lo que tiene que hacerle, ¿verdad? Irse para casa a la pinga. A los mexicanos. Que se vaya para casa a la verga. En inglés, se lo voy a decir en inglés. El gudicillo que me dijo, que se lo meta en el culo. Me fui.
Okay, here's what Randy said in Spanish. The only thing he should be thankful for is having such great parents. He's very well educated, thank God. I was lucky enough to see them a few days ago at the hotel. They came over to greet me, gave me a big hug, and were genuinely proud to see me again. Genuinely proud to see me again. After that, I want to give it to him straight Cuban style. This is Randy continuing. What he has to do is off. And then he said in Mexican style, "Go to hell." And in English, he said, "That fake ass good to see you he hit me with, he can shove it straight up his ass. I'm out." Hembo, what do you think?
I think we've got ourselves some fireworks at the WBC, Buster. And look, I mean, I suppose there is a chance, whether it be a strong one or not a strong one, that this is kind of, if not an act, something that these guys are sort of texting or joking about amongst themselves and the kind of thing that we'll laugh about once the season begins. Or, on the other hand, it could be the sort of genuine bad blood between the two for one reason or another, and demonstrative of the level of competition that we're talking and the kind of competitors that each are. Am I surprised to hear Randy Arozarena say that about his teammate, his other teammate? Yes, to be honest with you, I am. And when I woke up this morning, I thought I was reading something that was incorrect. But now we know, of course, that this has been translated accurately. I have to believe that we're going to see some tentacles of this, and over the course of time, see this story evolved in some way, shape, or form. If I had to guess, these guys will be kosher once we get to opening day. But I think right now it demonstrates how much pride these guys have in their country and how Randy Arozarena did not like being shown up in front of the world.
So in talking with people today, it feels like that there basically was an understanding among the USA players. This was the tack that they were going to take. Everyone who's been on social media, he's seen the video of Kobe Bryant's teammates talking about how when he ran over Pau Gasol at the Olympics and told them ahead of time he was going to just blast him going into it. And I get that. I got to say, I found this silly. And I think if Cal hasn't already reached out to Randy or texted him overnight or called him up and said, "Hey, I'm coming over," he needs to get ahead of this. Like, I find it to be silly, quite frankly. You think about it, in 2 weeks, okay, this is a tournament for which none of them are getting paid. It's a fun tournament. They're all having a lot of fun playing for their teams. But to get to a point where you're not shaking the hand of a guy who's your teammate for 7 months of the season, 8 months of the season, I think it's incredibly short-sighted. And I get it. Again, this is probably something the U.S. players just agreed to do amongst themselves. Now, there's a bigger issue here. And think about it, okay? The first week of the season, the Yankees visit Seattle. When they go to play those games, do we think Aaron Judge is going to walk up to the plate and Cal Raleigh is going to refuse to shake his hand? I mean, every day during the regular season, these guys are shaking hands and dabbing up and meeting each other during stretch. It's silly, Hembo.
Yeah, I think you're right. This strikes me as performative nonsense, as if the United States is flexing its muscle by not reciprocating a handshake or a high five or something of that kind. I'm just imagining Jerry DiPoto with his feet up watching the start of that game, spitting out his bourbon as he sees his two players loathe each other, and then, of course, have to get on the phone afterwards when Randy Arozarena blows a gasket after the game. But either way, I think it's likely a no harm, no foul, but I think there's a meaningful chance that you're right. There were some genuine hard feelings that Cal Raleigh and Randy Arozarena will have to reconcile in an honest moment.
Yeah, and I think that's what we heard from Randy. Like, I think he was legitimately like, "Wait, what?
Mhm.
Like, we're together, and you're gonna diss me over this little silly tournament that we're not
Sure.
even being compensated for? What are you kidding?" Right? It just and look, Cal's a great guy. I think he's a great teammate. And again, I suspect he probably has already dealt with this in some form or fashion and tried to restore things. Taylor, I always love to bring you in for fan perspective. What did you think?
Buster, I was legitimately shocked that he wouldn't shake his head. I couldn't believe it. I thought I wasn't sure if he was like doing a bit. I wasn't sure how serious Randy Arozarena was about it. But now that it seems that Cal Raleigh was genuine, at least in that moment, that Randy was rightfully pissed off about it. So I understand. I mean, they're juiced up for the competition, but kind of a weird move from Cal.
It was. I just thought it was silly. So I'm curious to see what comes out of this as we move forward. All right, Jesus Luzardo signs a long-term deal with your team, Hembo. 5 years, $135 million. What'd you think?
I think it's an example of really good process by the Phillies, who a year ago identify him as something of a distressed asset in Miami. He comes to Philadelphia, has the best season of his career, takes on that sweeper, which is one of the very best pitches in all of baseball, pitched to a 3.9 ERA, and Buster, as you probably remember, 20 of the 80 earned runs that he allowed came in those two starts back-to-back in which he was tipping his pitches. His true talent last year, based on all the underlying metrics, say that's a low 3s ERA pitcher who I think over the course of 5 years and $135 million is very likely to be a contract that the Phillies look back on very fondly. And let's keep in mind, Buster, that Jesus Luzardo is just one and a long line of really successful starting pitchers that the Phillies have taken under their wings under Caleb Cotham, their pitching coach. I mean, this is a guy
Vanderbilt guy.
Vanderbilt guy. He's been their pitching coach now going on 6 years. Let's keep in mind what he's done, right? Zach Wheeler, who was there before he got there, has had 4 top 10 Cy Young finishes. He's been a legend in the postseason. You had Christopher Sanchez, who they once got 1-for-1 for Curtis Mead as the 5th best pitcher in all of baseball. Ranger Suarez lends a 5 for 130 in Boston. And here Jesus Luzardo is 5 for 135 in Philadelphia. This has become a pitching factory. It's the best pitching staff in baseball across the last 5 years by a considerable margin. It's good process. I think this is the kind of deal that will age fairly well given the stuff, given the age, and given the trajectory of the front office from the perspective of pitching development.
So you sent that note out and I retweeted it. Did you notice who also retweeted or liked it? I can't remember which one he did. Did you notice?
Not. Who
Someone you
engaged
may
with
have
that?
heard of? How about John Middleton?
Really?
The owner of the Philadelphia Phillies, right?
I did
He
not know
loved
that.
your
But I mean,
note.
look, that's the guy cutting Caleb Cotham's check, so I might have cost him money, and he's doing a worse job of amplifying that for himself. But look, he knows what he's got there. I mean, if you look at what the Phillies have done the last 5 years, the gap between the Phillies and the Dodgers, from the perspective of just the value their starting pitchers have produced, is equivalent to the Dodgers and the Mariners. That's the difference between teams number 2 and 15 on that list. I mean, the Phillies have had a pipeline from a pitching perspective, and it sounds like they know it all the way up to the top.
All right. Speaking of the Phillies, what numbers should Bryce Harper chase this year?
Bryce Harper should be chasing the number 100. 100 walks should be his aim. It's a number that he's reached 4 times in his career, a number he's not reached since 2021. And I think, Buster, the best way to describe this is through the prism of the offseason that the Phillies just had. Going back to October, when Dave Dombrowski quite famously, quite publicly said, Bryce Harper is no longer elite. We know that Bryce Harper has took umbrage to that, and for good reason. That's not the kind of thing that you're accustomed to seeing someone say publicly about the face of a franchise. But candidly, I think Dave Dombrowski was right about it. Let's do a little unpacking here. So the 2021 season was Bryce Harper's last MVP season. In that season, he ranked in the 68th percentile, in chase rate. It's demonstrably above average. Buster, in the 4 seasons since, it's 12th, 21st, 19th, and 11th. Bryce Harper takes a pass at a pitch outside the strike zone about 34% of the time. Now, as you well know, he's gotten away with that kind of aggression because he has just punished pitches inside the strike zone, and particularly in the heart of the plate. But he didn't do that nearly as effectively last year. And so I think 100 walks is on the table for him this year if he wants it. No hitter in baseball, as Scott Boras likes to tell us, saw fewer pitches in the strike zone last year than Bryce Harper. No pitcher in baseball that is active has seen a lower career mark than Bryce Harper's 42.6, Buster, to which I say, this guy should be the Phillies leadoff hitter. Bryce Harper should lead off for the Phillies this year, Buster, and I'm going to do the best I can here with my elevator pitch before I land the plane to tell you why. We know that over the last few years, as I just demonstrated, he's expanded the strike zone more than he should, more than he'd like. If you put him in that spot ahead of Kyle Schwarber, who should be hitting second for this club, you best believe those opportunities are going to be made available to him. And then you hit Trey Turner third, where he has the chance to run wild, which he can't do leading off in front of Harper and Schwarber, because you don't want him running into those out. So it's a non-traditional way to build your lineup. But if you go Harper, Schwarber, and Turner, what you've done is maximize the skill sets of each of those 3 guys. I don't think they'll do it, but Buster, based on the lineup construction theory that I adhere to, that's something the Phillies should consider.
So if you send out that information on Twitter and John Middleton likes or retweets that, you really got something. Bryce Harper for leadoff hitter.
That's funny.
We'll see where that goes. So this morning I was in the Blue Jays clubhouse, and Ben Schulman, Dan's son, was there, and we were talking about what you and I had discussed last week about teams with heightened injury risk. And you actually came up with some information, maybe some numbers about that.
Buster, I came up with 4 teams that I view as being like direct contenders, that I view as the most potential
At risk?
Yes, I get the teams that I think have the most at stake based upon high-profile injuries they might be able to absorb. The 4 teams, in no particular order, although I think these are the ones in the sort of top of the glut here, would be the Braves, the Astros, the Orioles, and the Rangers. It's those 4 teams that I think are perhaps most acutely exposed to potential injury risk. Interrupt me whenever you want, but here's just a sort of top-level line on each of these guys. I think the Braves are fairly obvious. It's already Schwellenbach and Smith-Shawver and Waldrop in a rotation with guys that are already somewhat fragile to begin with. In the Astros case, Jeremy Pena starting the year hurt. I don't think it'll last long, but Yordan Alvarez and Josh Hader are both massively important to that club, and those are guys with injury histories or present injuries. The Orioles are fairly obvious because Jordan Westburg and Jackson Holliday are starting the season injured, and Kyle Bradish, Trevor Rogers, and Shane Baz are all pitchers that are very important for them with significant injury history. And the Rangers are also somewhat self-explanatory with Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi in the rotation, not to mention Corey Seager, their best player, and something of an X factor in Evan Carter, who was actually fairly good last year, just not healthy last year. So Buster, amidst the contenders, those are the 4 top-of-head teams based on the numbers last year and based on the high-profile guys who, look, might be at more injury risk than others, that I view as especially prone to injuries in the way that could affect their standings this year.
Yeah, and the context for the conversation for Ben and I were the Rangers. And we were talking about this very thing, and we're going through their lineup and talking about who on their roster was at heightened risk for injury. All right, before you go, I want to ask you about the guy who I think has a chance to be the heir to the power legacy left behind by Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, and Kyle Schwarber, and that would be Junior Caminero. Just watching him around the cage, taking batting practice with Dominican Republic players the other day, knowing that he's 22 years old, coming off a 45 home run season. What do you got on Junior?
I mean, he is as special as they come. He truly is, Buster. Coming off a 45-homer season at the age of 21, something no one's done since Eddie Matthews in 1953. Coming off a 73 extra base hit season, something no one's done at 21 since Mike Trout in 2013, 322 total bases. Ronald Acuna in 2019 did that. He was the last one. The point is, this guy makes potent contact, as loud a contact as you see from somebody that his age in all of baseball, because of course it's one of the fastest bats in all of baseball. If you're going to sit here and sort of lay out what the trajectory looks like, there are two things that you have circled that could be the only things that potentially stunt any of that development, any of that trajectory. The first of which is swing decisions. It was a 311 on base percentage last year. As you know, a 45 home run hitter typically is going to have a number larger, if not much larger than that. But the swing decisions are actually somewhat sound, primarily because he swings it inside the zone very aggressively. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it's a number to circle. The other buster is 31. He grounded into 31 double plays last year. It was the highest total of anybody in 10 years. When you give away 62 outs in a season like that, it really depreciates your value. But these are somewhat small things when you consider the fact that he has all the big things taken care of. Most notably, he hits the ball as hard as anybody in baseball because he swings the bat as fast as anybody in baseball, Buster. So here are the comps. PECOTA every year when they do their projections spits out comps for every player based on what they've done at what age. His three comps are Manny Machado, Mike Trout, and Adrian Beltre. Those are outstanding comps. I did the same exact exercise on my own. Those spit out Orlando Cepeda and Eugenio Suarez. Now, obviously, there's a very significant gap amongst those players, but all of them are outstanding players. And if you were going to tell me that he has a floor that rhymes with Suarez, that guy has 325 home runs in the big leagues, but it's a fairly low on-base percentage. If he doesn't improve that aspect of his game, you might say that's a pretty nice threshold to hit. But I also think there's a meaningful chance that he's someone that could run into 60 homers in a season because he hits the ball so hard. And when your mistakes wind up as home runs, well, look, that gives you the chance to do something truly historic.
Yeah, we heard Eric Hosmer talk yesterday about how long his swing stays in the strike zone, and he is powerful. All right, send me those notes, Hembo. I'm working on that Caminero story. Thanks for doing this.
Later, friends.
Scott Boras is the agent for Tarik Skubal and many, many other players. Scott, how you doing?
Hi, Buster. Good morning.
Thanks for coming on. Of course, with everything going on with Tarik Skubal in the last 72 hours, you were the first name I thought of. I texted you and see if you'd come on to talk about Tarik's situation. Tell me about the conversations that you had with him after he pitched that first game when it was clear, he loved the event and talked about the possibility of staying. What were your conversations like with him?
Well, I think in the WBC realm, of course, players are invited. They're called, and so it's kind of a measure where you're receiving this invitation. What do you do? And then you talk to for each player, you talk to their families, and you talk to your team, and you talk to your team ownership, managers, coaches, talk to your teammates, and you try to do what is best for all. I think that's kind of what a player's faced with, particularly a pitcher. A little bit easier for position players to make these decisions, and having gone through it over the years, our job is one where we provide a format of all the pitchers who've pitched in the WBC and what impact it's had upon them going forward, all that information. And then the team raises, their format for what they normally do. And a lot of it is about routine. What's your routine to build up to be optimal for a season, and what you do, and how do you interface the two? And so the collective plan was that Tarik would, he wanted to participate and enjoy that experience, and he did. And once he was there, certainly he really got from the experience everything. His teammates were tremendously supportive, all knowing when he came there what why he was there, how long he would be there, and all those things. And certainly, I think after he performed, he honestly portrayed how wonderful the experience was for him and how much he enjoyed it. And then, of course, the plan that he had originally designed going into this and gave notice of to everyone. He executed. So that's kind of what how all of this transpired.
What can you describe his emotions as you guys were having conversations about what to do after that one appearance?
Well, it's just I think that his um, experience was one where they brought in speakers and it's a proud moment to share the patriotism of your country with fellow respected teammates and the towers of talent of our industry to do that. And I think it's very enjoyable. It's something that it's a novel experience in a player's career to do that. And the other part of it is that it is by invitation. Is that you've got to be the top of your profession to be included into the mix of that unit they put together each time around. And I think Tarik said it best when he um, you know, met the media after he performed. He said, "Man, I would do this for the Olympics, and I would do it again." And it was a great overall experience.
What would you say to anyone who might, and I've seen this opinion out on social media, other commentators believing that he should, stick around, represent his country, et cetera. How do you feel about those voices?
Well, I think whenever if you do go or you don't go, there are going to be voices. When you're the Cy Young, consecutive Cy Young Award winner, and you hold that stature, no matter what you do. If he didn't go at all, he would not be contributing. If he did go and contribute and then left, you're going to hear it. So no, so you're in a position where you're going to have um, ardent fans and supporters of the USA efforts that they're going to say something about because Tarik is who Tarik is. He's a Major League Baseball's greatest pitcher. And for those reasons, you're going to, no matter what decisions you make, you're going to have a counter. If he had gone through the whole process, the Detroit Tiger fans would say, "Why are you, not supportive of your team?" So when you're in that spectrum, you're going to not please everyone all the time.
Scott, everyone knows what he has at stake this year with free agency coming up. A lot of people expect in the industry that he could wind up with the biggest contract that we've ever seen for any pitcher because of how great he is. My own feeling was I wish Team USA, Mark DeRosa, had given him more cover when this whole topic came up. That after that game, I wish Mark had just come out and said, "Hey, Tarik agreed to go one outing. It was great that he supported the event. Tarik, thank you so much, and good luck to you as you head back to Lakeland." As opposed to sort of having it hang out there, this question of whether or not he would continue. What do you think?
Well, I think I would imagine, and you would have to ask Mark this, but he and Andy have a plan as to what they were doing for the entirety of the WBC process. And that plan included the invitation to Tarik to come do what he did. And then had gone to all the other pitchers that are there and said, "You're going to do X, Y, and Z throughout the process. And for each game, they're going to do it." So I would imagine that, their um, pursuit of Tarik and their usage of Tarik centered around the overall strategy of what they're going to do. So when Tarik came in, there was no expectation on the part of them to do anything more than what their plan included. And for that reason, they are, just moving along status quo about what they're going to do to manage the talent that they have to the best of their abilities for the remainder of the WBC.
So, in past conversations you and I have had, you've been very complimentary about AJ Hinch's handling of Tarik and fostering his greatness and protecting his interests. Let's be honest as well. What's behind that in your eyes that you like how AJ has handled him?
Well, AJ's had the opportunity in Houston to, take a Garrett Cole from Pittsburgh and work with him and work with Verlander. He's worked with multiple Cy Young Award-winning pitchers, and he really has an understanding of each individual and how to best use them. But he also is very protective of the player, of his health, his recovery, and I think his catching background really allowed him to understand that he knows when to go get a pitcher. He also knows how during a season to manage a pitcher's flow and innings so that he is most optimal for what he wants to do for the team at primal times in the postseason. So I think he's really done a good job of that. And frankly, you have to agree that a lot of the pitchers that AJ's had have really reached, the Everest of their performance while they're under him.
AJ has told me that the communication that he has with Tarik is dead honest, like both ways. When they come off a game, hey, what did you think about this situation? And Tarik, he says, is the rare player where there's no coddling necessary. Like he doesn't have to kiss his ass. He tells him exactly what he thinks, and Tarik responds very well to that. You representing him, you know him well. What's your perspective about Tarik's ability to handle feedback?
Well, I know that, we had a very difficult decision to make with this arbitration case. And when you're filing a number that we recommended that he file and gave him the basis of it, and we let him know that there hasn't been a Cy Young award-winning pitcher that's won an arbitration case in 30 years. I want you to be aware of that. The other part of it is that we're seeking the largest increase in history, which was, I think the largest increase was maybe 3 million. This was 13 million. This is the basis of our theory. And he just absorbs the information. He goes, I believe in myself. I think this is really the truth of my value and what I do. And he took on the responsibility of that decision. And he and Jess came back to me after our presentation of the case and said, that's what we're going to do. And I give him a lot of credit because I think that, that was a very difficult decision to make, no doubt.
What were the circumstances under which he brought to the hearing, from what I heard, his 2 Cy Young awards, the actual plaques? What was his thought process there?
No, I had him bring them, but I said, we're not going to present them. Only if I hear things in their case in chief that were necessary to illustrate that winning 1 Cy Young is very different than winning 2 Cy Youngs back to back. And I wanted to make sure that if I needed the what I would say, the best evidence of how difficult that is, um, we we just had them in the backdrop, but we never brought them out during the case.
When you got notification that you won the $32 million decision, what do you remember about your phone call to Tarik? I'm assuming that he heard that from you.
The one of the best things about being an attorney for players is the moments where you share decisions and the outcomes become what you hope for. Um, you hear the break in their voice. You hear the appreciation. You hear the reward for what they've accomplished and what they've done, and to share those moments. It's much akin to when you played ball and you're as a professional player, you remember the moments of you're with your teammates, and you share those moments, and you have that intimacy that is they're rare, they're meaningful, and it's frankly stories you get to tell other players about it. And the great thing is, it's kind of funny. Whenever you have that call, they end up calling back in about 15 minutes and go, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you this." And in Tarik's case, he wanted to thank everybody for, we have a staff of.
He called you back. You called him with a decision, then he called you back
He
to follow up.
called me back, and he goes, "I want to have a Zoom with the entire staff," because we had about 40, 50 people there to help us, produce the case. And he goes, "I want to have a Zoom with the entire staff, and I want to thank them personally." And the next day we got on and had a Zoom, and it was great. He spent a half hour talking to everybody, talking about the case and really sharing how much it meant to him and his family, to the work and what we'd done. And so he's really a special guy, a very sensitive man, and a great husband and father. He's really it's really a privilege to work for him.
So I was in Tigers camp last week and had great conversations, of course, with Jake Rogers, who caught every pitch he threw in 2024 when he won his first Cy Young Award, Dylan Dingler last year, and they were both telling the story of the watches they got from Skubal this year. And classic Tarik, he basically told them, look, you need to pick out the watches that we're going to get. Tarik got a matching watch with them. And, AJ Hinch has talked to him and said, look, do you want to do a team presentation? Do you want to have a meeting? Tarik's like, nope, don't want to do that. And each of them showed up one morning in their clubhouse, and there was the watch sitting in a box on their seat. He's just so understated.
No, he's a he's a person that is, to all the people that are in his close-knit group, he lives a very disciplined life. The people he works out with, his routines, all of them are very close to him, and he understands and is very humbled by this game, and he takes on the game with that respect, and he knows what it takes to be what he can be optimally. And with each success, you see more and more attention to detail, more discipline, more clear focus about what he has to do. And when you see a player with greatness that has that attitude, you've seen it before. I saw it with Greg Maddux. And when you see a player like him with that skill have that kind of demeanor and makeup and approach and really respect for the game, that it's always about how to be my best the next outing, and it's never really about the what I've done in the past. And that attitude is, I give credit to his parents, his family, and people around him, because you can't teach that attitude. It's something that when you have that in greatness, you're a very special player.
Scott, thanks for doing this.
My pleasure, Buster.
Minnesota Twins.
The Twins season last year was a disaster. 70 wins, 92 losses, and lots of change during the season, when the front office dumped just about everybody other than Byron Buxton, Joe Ryan, and Pablo Lopez. And manager Rocco Baldelli was fired months before Derek Falvey stepped aside as head of baseball operations. Tom Pohlad is taking a much more active role than most owners as the Twins move forward.
Newcomers.
The Twins have cut payroll dramatically since last year, and Pohlad is still talking about contending in the American League Central. Here's who the Twins added in the winter. Just kidding. They signed Josh Bell, Victor Caratini, Liam Hendricks, and Gio Urshela, and traded for pitcher Jace Kaminska from the Rockies. But they got really bad news at the start of camp when Lopez went down with a season-ending elbow injury.
Reality injection.
Pohlad has connected with players and has talked about believing in the group. But the Twins, more than likely, are very short in their roster. It would make sense for them to consider dealing Ryan and Buxton before the deadline, cash in the remaining veterans for prospects, and devote themselves to a rebuild.
Win projections.
Pacoda has the Twins for 78.6 wins, which is shocking to me. I've got them at 68 wins. Sarah Lang says 76, Hembo 72. I just think with all new owners, there's going to be at least a 2-year learning curve, and Pohlad is still at the outset of that timeline.
Alrighty, Buster, Bleacher Tweets for Tuesday. First up, our pal, Corey Ruckert, he writes, what's the hypothetical payroll for Team USA? I did some poking around the internet, Buster. Hard Rock Bet, they showed their methodology. They use Sport Track to calculate that Team USA's total team salary for 2026 is $383 million, basically. Dominican Republic, $306 million, Venezuela, 191, Japan, 174, and Puerto Rico, rounding out the top 5 at 115 million.
So the numbers that I saw in Japan were closer to 301. Maybe they're using the Shohei Ohtani 70 million number rather than the actual present day value. That must have been with the difference there. But I saw the other day Australia was leading Japan in the 7th inning of their game. Japan, I read their payroll $301 million. The Australian collective payroll $1.5 million.
This list here has them listed. It doesn't even have a number. It's under 2 million. So
how about that?
That's the beauty of the WBC, baby. Let's go to.
No, it does. Tell me if I'm wrong. The WBC absolutely has a feel of the NCAA tournament, where the first rounds are like the number 16 seed, Hofstra going against Duke, right? And the expectation is that Japan's going to win, USA is going to win, Dominican is going to win. And it's a shock when if any of these other teams ever wins a game.
Yeah, and it's fun when things are close. It makes things extra compelling. It really is a David versus Goliath situation for sure.
Yep, exactly.
Let's go to Harry in Rhode Island. He writes, I've been loving the show for many years. I've run a few thousand miles while listening. Thank you. Question, can players be traded between the U.S. and Japan, given how well Masataka Yoshida is playing for Team Japan and that he doesn't seem to have a position open with the Red Sox? Could such a trade happen? Interesting.
No, it can't. Well, there can be a deal. So there can be a deal. But I mean, it's incredibly complicated. Players can't come here from Japan without posting first, and then they become free agents. But there's not trades, say for example, that the Mariners and the Rays make. It doesn't work that way. And I agree with Yoshida, by the way. I sent out on Twitter, he would be a perfect fit for what the Astros need. A left-handed hitting outfielder. And the good thing is, like in Fenway Park in Houston, their home ballpark, left field is very small. I wonder if the WBC will remind everyone again just how good a hitter he can be. Fact is, he doesn't have a spot on the Red Sox roster with all the outfielders they have.
He is definitely going to enjoy a post-WBC bump, no doubt about it. Let's go
Not if he stays with the Red Sox. I mean, Jared Duran is going bonkers. Like, he's playing great. Roman Anthony, Wilyer Abreu, Ceddanne Rafael is the best center fielder in baseball. Defense, he's great. I mean, Yoshida's really boxed in on that roster.
Yeah. Can the Red Sox win the AL East? Tim Kirkshin, they gave him reason to think yesterday. Check it out. 2 personal questions here from the listeners. Michael McCrary in Alexandria, Virginia writes, several episodes ago, Buster teased an Australia story about a shark. Did I miss it? As a former history grad student at Melbourne University, I'm rager to hear the story. My own, perhaps similar experience involved a crocodile.
Okay, so I get the benign shark story. We were out snorkeling one day, and we had sharks in the area, but they were non-man-eaters, a lemon shark. And I will say, you turn your head, even though at no point were we in any danger. We never felt like we were in danger. You turn your head and you're in the water and you look and there's a 7-foot shark there. That gets your heart going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And this is the sad part, when we were staying about an hour south of Sydney, And during the week we were there were 4 shark attacks. And sadly, in one case, a little boy lost his life. There was a lot of shark activity, bull sharks, I guess, and they had closed a number of beaches while we were there.
Bull sharks are the most dangerous shark. People, they default to great white with jaws, but no, it is indeed the bull shark. So there's your zoology lesson here at the end of the podcast. Last one, Mike from Cardiff, Wales writes, as someone whose fandom comes from my college years in Wisconsin, I'm curious on Buster's comment last week about picking a team to follow when he retires. Is there a method he's going to use to pick one or just a gut feeling at the time?
Gut feeling
you really
at
opened
the time.
The door on that one, Buster.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited for that, right? I'm fired up about it. And just to, get fired up that the game's going. I mean, Jake right now with the Charlotte Hornets, his favorite basketball team his whole life, like they've been playing well. And it feels like his whole week at college is structured around, okay, I've got this class at 4, I've got this class at 7, and then at 8 o'clock, I'm watching the Hornets. And he's fired up, and I miss that time, and I can't wait for it in retirement.
Well, see, the thing is, Buster, you need to pick a good team, or maybe, maybe
I don't know.
Because when they stink, then you might not be as interested. He's engaged right now because the Hornets are good for the first time ever.
Yeah,
so
that's Jake. Jake is a front runner. I'm not. Okay, I tell people all the time that I'm a Vikings fan, for God's sake. I can't possibly be a front runner. And I'm kidding. Jake actually isn't. I mean, his favorite teams have never won anything. But my favorite team to cover, I think among all the teams I covered, I love covering the '93 Padres. And they were 61 and 101. But they just had a good group of guys, and I knew that the likes of Trevor Hoffman, young relief pitcher, Brad Ausmus, those guys, they were all going to get better as time went along. So it was fun to sort of be there on the ground floor for a team that 5 years later was in the World Series.
Good stuff, Buster. This is why you stick around to the end of the podcast, everyone. The listeners know, but the viewers might not. So zoology lessons, glimpses into Buster's future. That is why you listen to Bleacher Tweets. We'll be back on Friday with a WBC quarterfinal preview, and then we're gonna rev things up for the semis and the finals here too. So lots more to come.
Okay. Is it Friday? We're settled on Friday then. We'll be talking.
Yeah, we'll do a Friday. Yeah, Friday quarterfinal preview. You have some travel over the weekend, so I think we will recap the semifinals, preview the finals, and then we'll be back after the finals that next morning with a new episode.
Unless some other big news happens, then we'll blow up all of our plans and come back on. All right, that's it for today. My thanks to Taylor, Hembo, Scott, Boras. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and remember, hate and inequality based on skin color is something we need to fight against every single day.